electric car, do you? Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol Ped. Now I'm sat just a few inches in front of one of the best inventions ever by mankind, a naturally aspirated V10 petrol engine. And it makes a glorious noise, as I demonstrated at the beginning of this video. And the engine is attached to an Audi R8 V10 performance rear-wheel drive that I've been lucky enough to drive around for the last week. There's a video coming to the channel on this car very, very soon, but that's not the subject of this video. Because spending so much time this week with this car has got me thinking. In fact, it's got me feeling quite contemplative and quite melancholy, and I think that's also to do with a few videos that I've put out on the channel recently and the kind of debate and comments that I've seen in the comments section. And I just wanted to have a chat and, if you like, come back at some of those comments and let you know my thoughts on the subject. Because this car is dying this year. The Audi R8 is no more, and it will be joined by a whole host of amazing petrol and diesel engine cars over the coming years. Some performance cars, some just family cars, to be replaced by either hybrid or full battery electric vehicles. Like most countries in the world, the UK have decided that they're going to phase out the internal combustion engine for new cars, and by 2030 only hybrid and battery electric vehicles will be made, and from 2035 even hybrids go. And so far the electric car journey has been an interesting one, and I want to say I'm a big EV fan. I've driven lots of them, I've spent time with lots of them. I have a Mustang Mach-E as my long-termer from Hendy's, and I love it. And I appreciate many things to do with electric cars. And judging from the sales figures, so does the UK. Last year in the UK, we had 1.6 million new cars sold. And of that, the proportion that were full electric was 13%. But if you look at the sales figures in December, 33% of all new cars were full electric. So it's clear that people are buying them. The really interesting thing, though, is at the same time you hear those sales figures for the success of new car sales being electric, we also see videos of queues of Teslas queuing up at supercharger stations, or tales of woe of public infrastructure where there are more new cars that are full electric on the road, but that hasn't been backed up with infrastructure investment, and we're still woefully behind where we should be in terms of public infrastructure. There aren't enough rapid chargers, especially with the growth in electric cars. There's still too many electric chargers that are badly maintained and out of service. It's still too fragmented. For me, it's just not good enough. I did a video recently on the channel where I talked about the fact that actually for most of the time, if you can charge at home, that's not a problem, but if you can't, it's a big problem. But I think my problem is a little bit more difficult to summarise than that. I see electric cars as part of our future, but the more I read and the more people I talk to, the more challenged I become about the government stance being that they are the only future. When we start to also see things about the low emission zones, I put a video out just last week, and that's kind of what stimulated this video, about the low emission zone growing in London, but there's also similar emission zones in many major cities in the UK. And they're looking at specific things about cars, CO2 emissions, tailpipe emissions, but that doesn't tell the whole story. And that's my challenge, I think, with the place where we are at the moment. I'm not going to sit here and say that electric cars are bad or good, or internal combustion engine cars are bad or good, or I'm going to demonise diesel. I'm not going to do any of that. You should know me by now. I just like cars. They all have their place. My problem is, I don't think that it's as simple as just saying it's EV cars and nothing else. What about hybrid technology? Hybrid cars do a brilliant job. What about alternative fuels? being out in Dakar recently with Audi and talking to the engineers about their incredible Dakar car. Now, the architecture of that car, I guess, was probably not something we'll see immediately on the road. A full-blown battery electric vehicle with an internal combustion engine generating power for the motor. I know we've had EVs with range extenders like the original BMW i3. But when you look at the alternative fuel that the RSQ e-tron used, which was an alternative fuel that didn't directly compete with the human food chain, I found that really, really interesting. And I think there is scope for alternative fuels. I think if we're looking at pure EVs, you've got to look at where the power's coming from. And yes, in the UK, we've got a lot of renewable energy, solar and wind, and we generate more energy as a percentage of our total from renewables, almost, more on more, month on month. But it's still some way off of being entirely renewable and not dependent on fossil fuels. And then there's other things like hydrogen. I drove the hydrogen Toyota Mirai about 12-18 months ago now. A brilliant car. And I just think that there's a bigger conversation needed. The powers that be, the government, the politicians, the industry, I think we just need to have a bigger conversation about what's going to happen going forward, because I honestly don't think it's as simple as it's being made out to be. I think it's more complex. I think there's still room for internal combustion engines. I think there's still room for hybrids beyond the deadlines that have been set. And there are rumours, and I've read a couple of articles in the press, the likelihood of that 2030 deadline or the 2035 deadline being moved back is reasonably high. But what I found really interesting is the stance that people take online. It's so polarised. It's impossible for someone like me to sit in the middle and appreciate both battery electric and internal combustion engine cars, because it's almost like it's so tribal. There's a whole school of people out there that all they want to do is drive internal combustion engine cars. Electric cars are the devil, and they're never going to work, and they're never going to be part of society. And actually the move to electric is just a ruse by the government to get the poor man off of the road and into public transport. I just don't buy that. I really don't. And I think it's sad that that kind of argument ends up in the comments, and it stops being about what kind of cars we like and about what kind of income bracket you come into or what kind of job you do. It's just ridiculous. And the amount of comments I've had in videos recently that have boiled it down to a class argument, working class versus middle class, is just ridiculous. There are issues around electric cars for sure. New electric cars are too expensive for most people to afford. A lot of the incentives that help people get into new cars, new electric cars, have either already disappeared or are disappearing. The tax incentives for company car drivers to get into electric, zero benefit in kind, they're probably at an end. And I think you'll find that what will happen is lots of people who've bought electric cars as company cars because it's cheap for benefit in kind suddenly realise it doesn't work for them and need to get out of electric. And I read some things recently about some models, the depreciation costs of EVs within the first 12 to 18 months on some models is horrific. Some EV models are dropping 30 to 40% in the first year because people have got into them, realised it doesn't work for them, getting out of them. So actually, there's an argument that says, if you want to get into EVs, don't look at buying a new one, go and look at the used market. Now I am going to do a video about the other common thing that gets thrown up about EVs, and that is battery longevity, motor longevity, servicing, long-term ownership costs and those kind of things. So stay tuned for the channel for that. But I just wanted to kind of almost come back, I try and reply to comments, but come back, my stance on EV, electric cars, hybrid cars versus internal combustion engine cars is I think there's room for all of them. I'm sad that we're saying goodbye to so many great cars. This R8 I've had this week is just an exceptional thing. It sounds amazing. It goes like stink. It's a phenomenal thing. And it's sad to see them go. But for me, there needs to be a conversation around a mix of technologies, around extending the life of internal combustion engine cars more, around more use of hybrids for certain applications, alternative fuels, especially for heavy transport, for agriculture, a better exploration of hydrogen, a better exploration of renewable fuel sources to make electric cars green, let alone the whole conversation around actually physically making the cars in the first place. The energy needed to make batteries, the energy needed to make cars, mean that electric cars aren't, just because they don't emit tailpipe emissions doesn't mean that they are completely green, because they just emit CO2 in other parts of the supply chain. It's a complex area, and I think at the moment the government have it wrong in that it's just an easy solution. Let's just go EV. For me, that's not a well thought through argument. It needs to be explored more. So I intend to do more research. I intend to do more videos around alternative fuels, around the technology mix, maybe talk to key players in the industry and just get their view, because I honestly don't think it's as simple as we think it is. I would love to know your thoughts. Put it in the comments below. I was just driving back from the Cotswolds and I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to have a chat with my peddlers and let them know where I am, because the comments that I've had and the videos that I've had done well on the channel recently have all been around this subject, and there seems to be so much polarization. It's something that I think needs to be explored more. Let me know what you think, but I don't think it's as easy as we think it is. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol Ped for plenty more content to come, and I'll see you on the next film. Take care guys, drive safe.